Welcome to Buddha's Center. It's wonderful to be here tonight to talk about the stage of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. We've been doing this for so long, first with Khenser Geshe Wandak, Rinpoche, and now because of his kindness and asking me to continue these teachings, I'm able to look at and discuss these topics that are so profound, where we find Lord Atisha's verse that Rinpoche quoted so many times. Understand that there are persons of three capacities: small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. And this one stanza encompasses everything that anyone in the universe needs to know about becoming enlightened, about removing the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience that keep us from two things that we want more than anything in the world. The afflictive obstructions keep us from having no suffering, so we have suffering because of the afflictive obstructions. And the obstructions to omniscience, or sometimes called the cognitive obscurations, keep us from having the highest amount of happiness possible. And this summarized kind of summary of all of the stages of the path found in Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment is a summary of those stages that allow us to get to the goal of a complete removal of the afflictive obstruction, so a complete removal of suffering altogether, and a complete removal of the obstructions to omniscience. So this is a complete removal of the limited states of happiness that we experience, the contaminated states of happiness that we experience that aren't at their most perfect level of bliss. So we can, based on these teachings that we are learning about tonight, achieve that state that's just unbelievable when we really think about it, thinking about being the most reliable guide in the universe with perfect love and compassion, perfect skillful means, perfect power, and a perfect wisdom that really recognizes everything about reality simultaneously. And that's something that no one else in the universe but a Buddha can do. And with that knowledge of everything in the universe, because he or she has the most unlimited amount of compassion that's available, they help and they become the most reliable guides in the universe. And we will help. We will become the most reliable guides in the universe by depending upon these same stages of the path to enlightenment that all of the Buddhas relied upon. And we're so fortunate to have a perfect lineage of instruction passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni all the way through the Nalanda Pandits and then through the Tibetan masters to us. We're so fortunate this lineage is unbroken and that we have all of the instructions that are needed to achieve those goals that we talk about that seem so far away, but they're only as far away as we make them in terms of whether or not we're engaging in the practices to get ourselves closer to those goals. So if we don't begin to work on getting closer, we will stay far away. But the more and more we work on evolving our mind, the more we get closer to that goal, which is the removal of those afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience that we can do in dependence upon learning exactly what the stages of the path for beings of three capacities are. So just really rejoice in this opportunity that we have and recognize that it's so rare. And among all of the individuals, the billions and billions of human beings in the universe, very, very few will ever know what it will take to reach their goals. And here we have this precious gift in our hand that was given to us so freely and so generously that shows us exactly how to achieve that. So let's begin with setting the most incredible motivation in the universe, the motivation to achieve that goal that I'm talking about right now, that goal which is to remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. And once that happens, you will be called Buddha. You will be a Buddha. So this idea of wanting to become this perfect being for the sake of all sentient beings is called bodhicitta. This is the most incredible motivation that any being, any sentient being can have in the universe, to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And we look at Lord Maitreya's Abhisamalamkara, we find the definition of bodhicitta is the aspiration or the wish to achieve transcendent enlightenment, the highest enlightenment or Buddhahood, for the sake of all sentient beings. So let's begin by setting a proper motivation that is this wish, wishing to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, attending this teaching to learn exactly how to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And with this wish, let's imagine the entire merit field. All of the enlightened beings are in the space in front of us, encouraging us, serving as role models, serving as examples of beings who have evolved, beings who have, in reliance upon the stages of the path, have achieved the goals that we desire to achieve. So we're so fortunate to have these beings in our universe that are here to help, that are here to show us, just like Buddha Shakyamuni did, out of great compassion, how to get freedom from the things that we want freedom from so badly. Day and night, we want freedom from suffering. Day and night, we want freedom from those states of happiness that keep changing and keep tricking us, that keep baiting us into thinking that cyclic existence has something to offer us. We want a pure form of blissful happiness that isn't part of cyclic existence and isn't contaminated with the cognitive obscurations that keep us from our highest goal. Those cognitive obscurations that still have subtle forms of the self-cherishing attitude that disallow us from being as happy as we possibly can be. And the way we can be as happy as we can be and as reliable as we can be is by becoming a Buddha. And we see these enlightened beings in the space in front of us who've done this in the extensive deeds lineage and the profound view lineage and the lineage of blessings and all of the incredible Tibetan masters. And we look at the various lineages that Buddhism, became sprung into from Buddha Shakyamuni, the lineage of the Theravada tradition and the Dharmagupta tradition and the Mulasavastivadi tradition that we're part of within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And we really just should rejoice in the fact that we have all of this information available that is just meant to help us to learn how to achieve the goals that we want. And out of compassion, these great beings came to our world. So imagine that these great beings in the space in front of you, like Buddha Shakyamuni, however many beings you can imagine, whoever you consider enlightened beings, and your root lamas and so forth, and again, those lineages of instruction that was just mentioned, imagining them in space in front of you. And now also invite all sentient beings here to experience this incredible teaching, to experience what you will teach them in the future when you become a Buddha, to be able to show them how to discover exactly what they want to discover, and that's how to be free from suffering and how to have infinite happiness. So now imagine that you're sharing this gift of the teaching. You have this, you're imagining that you have the ability to have the generosity of Dharma in relation to every single sentient being in the universe, the way that you will when you become a Buddha. So imagine, and based on the kind of practices that you've been doing and the instructions we've been relying on in relation to the 7-point cause and effect instruction for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, at whatever level you can do, imagine that you're inviting all sentient beings in the universe here to be your guests, to be able to share these teachings with them. Imagine you're inviting those ones close to you, those neutral beings, and then beings that you find difficult. Imagine you're inviting all of them. And as Master Kamala Shila says in the stages of meditation, make sure that we're using actual beings. We're not just, making up beings that don't exist. Use beings that we actually have relationships within our life so that we can make it real. This practice is about evolving our minds, evolving the way our minds really work, not pretending the way our minds work. And the way our minds really work, we can see in relation to these different types of beings. And we've been putting a magnifying glass on how we react to these different types of beings when we say neutrals, friends, and enemies, how our minds are reacting to these different types of beings. We've been putting that under a magnifying glass because we know that with a biased attitude, we can't achieve our goals. So in whatever ability we can, imagine you're inviting these different types of beings. And then in the Great Treatise in the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, it says, then invite all of the other beings, those beings that don't necessarily fall into those categories of friends or strangers that you see them around on the streets and so forth. So they're strangers to you, but they're more known as a stranger than a being, for instance, in the hell realm who we can't perceive. So work with the beings that you can work with first, and then imagine the other beings that you can't necessarily comprehend, like the eight hot hells, eight cold hells, the surrounding hells, hungry ghosts, all of the animals in the sea and on the land and in the sky, and then other human beings that you have no clue about, and the demigods and gods of the desire, form, and formless realm. So we're making sure that when we're doing our meditations, we're including all sentient beings, because the object of observation, of great compassion, of this love through the force of attraction, of bodhicitta, is all sentient beings without any bias. So we're learning how to become acquainted with this kind of mind by doing exercises just like this. So we're imagining, we're inviting all sentient beings to be our guests, and imagine that they too are experiencing the immense love and compassion that we're witnessing by looking into the eyes of these enlightened beings that are here in the space in front of us to kind of encourage us, who are so happy that we're engaging in what we're doing, because the only reason they come to this world is to show us how to do what we're studying how to do right now. And that's how to get rid of the afflictive obstructions that keep us in samsara, and get rid of the cognitive obscurations, or the obstructions to omniscience that keep us from being a complete Buddha. So now let's rejoice in this fact that we have this opportunity, and then imagine that the merit field in the space in front of us transforms into Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, where the second turning of the wheel of Dharma took place, where the Buddha Shakyamuni meant what he said when he said that all phenomena are empty of intrinsic existence, of inherent existence, of existence by way of its own character, empty of existing right in the object. All of these things are synonymous when we look at the Prasangika view: empty of true existence, empty of established existence. So all of these things that we hear about in terms of these terminologies we hear about all mean the same thing. And the Buddha, in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, came to tell us that there's nothing in the universe that isn't empty of intrinsic existence. And there's a very, very clear line of demarcation that we need to make between what existence means and emptiness of intrinsic existence means. Emptiness of being established by way of its own character, emptiness of having some self-characteristics, establishing self-characteristics, or kind of a self-existence. So we're trying to figure out, when we start to study Buddhism, when we start to study what Buddha is meaning by emptiness of inherent existence, what that means, if that means that things don't exist, and if it doesn't mean that things don't exist, what does it mean if all of these things are being said, there's no this or that? So the mode of existence is the existence in question here, not the existence. So it's really important when we read the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge that we don't misinterpret what the Buddha is talking about. A lot of times we just go ahead and read this, and what worries me when we just go ahead and read this, because we're on all these different applications, is if I don't give you a slight explanation of what the Buddha is talking about, and you just hear me saying, there's no this, there's no that, there's no this other thing, it could lead one to believe that things don't exist, which is a view of nihilism, which is certainly not what the Buddha came to teach. The Buddha didn't need to come teach that. This is something that was already prevalent. It's something that's prevalent today. It's something that isn't going away anytime soon, this idea that things don't matter, that everything's just the brain, and it's just this life, these kinds of ideas that there's not an existent future life. These are ideas that were long before Buddha and will be long after Buddha. So the idea that, oh, these things just don't exist, it's just imagination, isn't what the Buddha came to tell us. The Buddha came to tell us that the imagined way that we think things exist is wrong, that we have imagination, and it isn't imagining things that do exist that don't really exist in terms of a conventional existence. There's a chair over there, but we're imagining that the chair over there exists in a way from its own side, separate from my mind imputing it in dependence upon a basis of designation or a collection, that there's something separate over there from that process of mere imputation from my mind on a basis of designation. I believe that the name I'm saying exists right within that object over there. The thing that I'm saying, this chair that I'm saying, exists right within the object over there. This label, this imputation, this name, I believe is something that I'm putting on a thing that is that exists from its own side. And I don't recognize the fact that there's just a mere collection that I'm naming that is actually contradictory to the designated object. The basis of designation is contradictory to the designated object. When we search for an intrinsically existent independent object within its basis of designation or somewhere that's separate from its basis of designation, it's unfindable. So we come to find that this thing that we're clinging to exist from its own side, to have an existence, a mode of existence that's so concrete, doesn't have such a concrete mode of existence. And a lot of the sciences are starting to recognize that our perceptions aren't reality. And these can all help us to understand that the reality that we see isn't exactly the mode of existence that things have, that we're being tricked. And in Buddhism, we say we're being tricked by a few things, not only an apprehension of things, this kind of conceptual belief in things being a certain way, but Lord Buddha came to tell us that our actual sense perception is embedded with this kind of wrong ignorance that's left a stain in it that makes us actually see things in a way that our sensory perception sees them to have an appearance before we even think about it, of having an independent existence by way of its own character that's established from the side of the object. So when we do think that things have concrete identities, we have concrete identities, that jerk over there is a concrete jerk, then our mind then makes decisions based on those concrete appearances and our concrete conceptions, that we say, hey, things are appearing this way, so why shouldn't I think about them that way? Why shouldn't I think that they're concretely there and concretely attractive, or concretely make me mad, unattractive, disgusting, or concretely just neutral, but still just concrete? So if I have this misperception, if I'm starting from a false view about all of my reality, about myself, about you, about all other phenomena other than person, I'm going to make wacky decisions, the Buddha says, about everything around me. And those wacky decisions, driven by wacky thinking, at the core, driven by believing things, person and phenomena are established by way of their own character. Driven by this, we have cyclic existence and revolve in it over and over and over and over and over again. We have a misunderstanding of everything around us that makes us then act, and those actions that are driven, those actions are contaminated because they're driven by afflictions. They're driven by a starting of a misunderstanding right from the gate. And until we unplug that which is giving rise to a belief that things could have a concrete attractiveness or a concrete inattractiveness, so we need to do something about it, until we unplug that mastermind that's creating all of this deception, which is self-grasping ignorance, we will continue to have the results of that self-grasping ignorance that has its friend self-cherishing attitude right next to it, supporting one another in the quest to continue samsara. And then at the subtlest level, the subtle self-cherishing attitude, keep us from experiencing the most infinite amount of happiness possible. And the Buddha came to tell us at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma what the medicine is that we need to take in order to get rid of that thing that causes cyclic existence to occur. If we undo the self-grasping ignorance that grasps at the self of person and phenomena as being intrinsically existent, then that will get rid of what's built upon that, this inappropriate attention that sees an intrinsically existent object as having intrinsically existent qualities of attractive or unattractive, or just being sitting there intrinsically existent, ready for me to make a decision that it's unattractive or attractive, and then I'm going to react. So if I've removed the self-grasping ignorance, then I don't concretize objects and give them an identity that they couldn't possibly have. And if I unplug that, then my being driven towards things I'm attached to and my being wanting to punch and yell at and run away from things that I hate is also unplugged, because there's nothing that I'm concretizing in such a way that allows my mind to be disturbed. The nature of the afflictions is a mental factor, the presence of which disturbs our mind. And if we can get rid of this idea that starts out from a wrong premise about things, then the disturbance of our mind that makes us glued to things and makes us punch things won't occur, because we won't see them as something to glue to or to punch. And when we don't have that kind of distorted idea about everything around us, then our actions aren't carried out in those ways. And we know that all causes have results. And if our causes are contaminated, according to the second seal, all contaminated causes are in the nature of suffering. What is a contaminated cause in terms of that which gives rise to our mental states that gives rise to suffering? The contaminator is the ignorance. So if you remove the contaminator, our thinking won't be contaminated, our actions won't be contaminated. And if our actions are not contaminated, then not contaminated actions don't give rise to samsara. So we can see so clearly how to undo cyclic existence and why it requires the medicine of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, a very clear understanding, I mean razor sharp understanding of what the Buddha meant by things don't intrinsically exist. There are 4 tenet systems that seem very similar until you delve into them, all of which are necessary and building blocks upon one another to understand the final Madhyamaka view of emptiness. Without understanding the earlier tenets of the Vaibhashika school, the Sautrantika school, the Chittamantra school, and the lower Madhyamaka schools, understanding this most subtle view that the Prasangika, Madhyamaka Prasangika holds is going to be almost impossible. So things that the Buddha is negating in this sutra right here, the Buddha said existed intrinsically in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. And in the lower tenet systems, and even in the mind-only school, and then all the way up to the lower Madhyamaka schools, you find varying levels of absolutism, substantialism, permanence that are asserted, which then also makes you assert a nihilism. So you find these various levels asserted that you would never even notice if you don't study it very clearly, and if you don't notice these subtle objects of negation, these subtle kind of misunderstandings within the lower tenets, there's no way to understand the final view, because these subtle misunderstandings are the misunderstandings that we all hold whilst thinking we understand that all phenomena are empty of intrinsic existence because they dependently originate, like an illusion, like a magic trick. We think that we can say this syllogism, and because it's a good syllogism and that it holds up, to the property of the subject and the reverse and forward pervasion, it's a good syllogism. We're good students. Because we can say this, we think that we haven't negated what we believe that the lower tenet systems are asserting that are actually wrong, because this is tricky. we've been since beginningless time misapprehending everything around us. And to think that we could just have some simple, quick instruction and be able to figure out the meaning of these things is a little bit arrogant. And to think that, oh, well, we just got lucky because we got the highest view. And those poor beings who think that those 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths are going to be enough, and the emptiness of autonomous substantial reality of person is going to be enough. Oh, if we could only realize the emptiness of a permanent unitary independent self of person, if we could only stop thinking things around us are permanent, if we could only stop freaking out when something breaks, then we could maybe, get a little further. That's really where we have to be honest with ourselves and say, when my car breaks, am I shocked? That's just grasping at my car being permanent. Because why wouldn't it break? It's a composite things. All composite, anything that comes together falls apart in terms of those kinds of things. So why wouldn't it break? Why am I so surprised? Because I grasp at as being permanent. I grasp at things that are really, really suffering as being happy. I grasp at dirty things as being clean. All these things have to be undone, and they're being undone in the kind of, as we would say, lower tenets, but they're not lower for me. They're higher than me, because there's realizations in those tenets that I don't have that I need. And if I jump to the Madhyamaka Prasangika, I'm going to miss all of the treasures of understanding that I need in order to actually get to the final view. I've got to make sure that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I've realized the things that I need to realize in the lower tenet systems. And I've also abandoned the wrong ideas that are in the lower tenet systems within my mind, so that I can then move on to the next one and say, okay, what's the next subtle level of view? It goes from the emptiness of permanent unitary independent self to the emptiness of autonomous substantial reality to the mind-only emptiness of externality to the Madhyamaka Svatantrika view of emptiness of true existence without negating conventional intrinsic existence, and then the Prasangika view of emptiness of intrinsic existence. These things are stepping stones to one another, and really the purifications that have to take place in terms of our grasping at the more gross things that aren't even about emptiness have to be moved out of the way in order for our minds to work well enough to be able to look at these, the 16 emptinesses, 20 emptinesses, the 7-point analysis of the chariot, the four types of intrinsic refutation of production, 4 types of refutation of productions, the 4 essentials. All of these things require a really flexible mind, and a mind that's able to have understood some foundational properties about reality that are necessary to be able then to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So these realizations that we find in the lower tenet systems are higher tenets than we actually hold. Tenet means established conclusions. And we don't even have the established conclusions in our mind of the Vaibhashika school. I don't have, maybe you do, this is a wrong way to say it. I don't have all of the established conclusions in my mind that are true, not the ones that need fixing up, that are true. So much of the Vaibhashika school carries over to the Madhyamaka Prasangika school that are true that I haven't realized. And if I don't spend the time on the introductory, I don't spend the time on, looking at in the Lam Rim, the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, and the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity. If I don't get those right, I am fooling myself if I think that I can just be a Mahayana practitioner and have a clue, have any kind of blip of an understanding what that might mean. So with that being said, we'll read the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, and let's I wanted to sell you on this idea that we need this medicine of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. We need the medicine of the first turning of the wheel of Dharma and the third turning of the wheel of Dharma also. We need the medicine that sits underneath the views of the Prasangika view in terms of Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamantra, and the lower Madhyamaka schools. And we have to recognize that this medicine isn't medicine that's telling us that our world doesn't exist. This medicine is telling us that the way we think our world exists is imagined, and that there's a mode of existence that those whose minds aren't affected by ignorance can tell us about. And then we can discover for ourselves. And if we discover this mode of existence, or the lack of the mode of existence that we think that it has intrinsic existence, then our minds can just be at peace. And why? Because of what we just explained. How the disturbed states of mind have are cradled by self-grasping ignorance. Everything sits in the lap of delusion. All of the afflictions sit in the lap of delusion. So when we think about this, if everything's sitting in this lap, this sutra right here pulls the lap out, makes the person stands up and throws the person off the lap, throws the afflictions out of the lap. There's nothing anymore for them to sit in. There's no basis for afflictions to be in. The coarse afflictions of attachment, aversion, and pride, and jealousy, all of these things. There's nothing to hold them up anymore. And once you get rid of that basis, they just dissolve. And imagine if you didn't have if all of your disturbed states of mind dissolve, what do you have? Peace. Nirvana is peace. This is what the Buddha is talking about. Dissolving all of the disturbed states of mind by dissolving that which is the root subtle affliction, and that is the self-grasping ignorance. Dissolving that, dissolving afflictions. If afflictions are defined as mental factors, the presence of which disturb your mind, if you dissolve that, what happens? You have no disturbance of mind. You have peace. Okay, things exist, they don't intrinsically exist. And then, so this is the definitive teaching that Lord Buddha gave, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. We know that when we say what is the definitive teaching according to Prasangika, it's the teaching on ultimate truth, emptiness of intrinsic existence. And that's the explicit teaching that's being given here. And then hidden within it, or the implicit teaching, again, is the 5 paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. So let's read this, and again, bringing it back, imagining all beings are with us to share this and be able to experience the Heart Sutra, and imagine that all of the enlightened beings are in the space in front of us, and particularly we're imagining we're at Vulture Peak Mountain at Rajagriha, and Buddha Shakyamuni has gone into meditative samadhi, and meditating on ultimate reality, and then at the same time blesses the mind of Avalokiteshvara and Venerable Shariputra to be able to engage in this dialogue of the Heart Sutra. And one very important clarifying point that was made by Geshe Dorje Damdula is that when we look at the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, one very special quality that the Buddha has is that the Buddha is able to cognize simultaneously ultimate truth, emptiness of inherent existence, see emptiness directly, if you will, and at the same time cognize conventional phenomena, act and react and cognize conventional phenomena. The only being in the universe that can do this. The Buddha is the only being that can simultaneously engage conventional and ultimate reality, perceive it, and do it in terms of all phenomena at the same time, seeing the two natures of all phenomena simultaneously. And we can only do one or the other. We can either, being a direct perception of emptiness, which I haven't had, but Aryas, if you were to have that happen, then you could be directly perceiving ultimate truth. But then you'd come out of that and you'd see conventional truth again. So it's an on-off. You can only do one or the other. The Aryas, 10th level bodhisattvas, only one or the other, seeing the ultimate truth, seeing conventional truth. So you have this total peace where there's no appearance of intrinsic existence. But then when you come out of it, if you're not a Buddha, there's an appearance of intrinsic existence, but you can see conventional truth. But it appears to intrinsically exist still. You don't necessarily, you have an appearance like emptiness, like you have an illusion like emptiness that's occurring because you've seen emptiness once you're on these higher levels, but the appearance of true existence is still happening. So at the beginning of this sutra, you see that the Buddha goes into the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. So it's saying the Buddha is in samadhi on meditating, seeing emptiness directly. And at the same exact time, the Buddha is dealing with conventional truth, because we know that, the ultimate truth is just the emptiness of intrinsic existence. It's a non-affirming negative that's being realized. And then, so the mind is only realizing that usually. But at the same time, a Buddha can do this kind of cross-functional thing. The Buddha can even, use his or her senses and to know all phenomena. So the Buddha is able to do these two things at the same time, where he's blessing Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara and actually conducting this teaching, it's said, because this has been told by the Buddha to say by blessing from his mind. So the Buddha is engaging in this blessing stuff, these enlightened activities, while seeing emptiness directly. So the Heart Sutra you have to hear the commentary on it, but you can see there's a secret in here that's saying, hey, Buddhas can do both of these things. They can see conventional and ultimate truth. Why? Look here, the Buddha is absorbed in ultimate truth, and he's acting, blessing, and doing all of these things. So there's not it's not like he's doing this, then he's doing that. The point that's being made here is the Buddha is simultaneously engaging conventional and ultimate truth, and that's something that only a Buddha can do. So we see that right at the beginning of the Heart Sutra, where it says that the Buddha's there, he goes into samadhi, seeing emptiness, and then Avalokiteshvara, and through the power of the Buddha, meaning now the Buddha is not only seeing emptiness, the Buddha's doing something, whereas normal beings that aren't Buddhas can only do something or see emptiness. They can't do both things. So the Buddha's doing two things here. So it's a special quality of the Buddha. And I thought that I'd share that with you. And it was pretty neat. And I'll have some, maybe we'll do the teaching on the Heart Sutra soon. I'll have some more stuff to share with you. I'm re-listening to the teaching on Jayangapi Lodru's precious commentary Rinpoche gave in Indiana on the Heart Sutra, but he taught that commentary, I think 6 or 7 times, and I've got a pretty good familiarity with it. So I'm refamiliarizing my mind with the various divisions of where the paths are laid out. This is showing how through 5 paths, one realizes emptiness, one realizes the ultimate truth, and it's actually embedded in here. And you need the commentary to see where all of the changes are. And I'll bring the Tibetan commentary into the teaching when we do it. But I just wanted to let you know that in the future, we'll go over this more. And you'll find that there's a lot of really neat things in here that you might not have known. And I certainly didn't know. And I've never heard again, by the way. This commentary by Jayangapi Lodru is so intense and amazing. And it follows along with the Abhisamalamkara and shows the various 5 paths, 10 grounds, and all of the objects of abandonment on those grounds, and how one actually becomes a Buddha, like the technology, what happens in terms of what gets abandoned here, what gets abandoned there, what gets abandoned there, and that all those paths are hidden within this Heart Sutra. So it's something exciting to think about for the future. Okay. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way, saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita, should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable true complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Galajube nejo damba nengushe duju ngai dudo jendru baba lama yi bujinzi nezum gandro san la shatse lo. Agasamara jasanara samara be agasamara. Agasamara jasanara samara ya vede yada ongate gate paragate parasangate badizo ababagonje sanji gai de medoje je kabadeji me badeji jewadeji dragi baji medobeji danji jedin goi zoha. Girendo jaji juju wada mitun nubejan danda wada tambadun jin bonzon zanjoji dashi de janden da de le sho. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds in knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. And now let's include in our supplication Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, the source of all my good, still including it within the mandala offering as a supplication to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the enlightened beings to be able to bless us, to be able to realize these things, meaning to be able to show us how to evolve our own minds to transform them into our magnificent potential. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop the wish so that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the past shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Bless me, grant me that this to practice, grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now and stop and end forever, and all my lives may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I obtain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If you is grasping, you do not have the view. And that was from Sachin Konganipo's Parting from the Four Attachments. Okay. So let's get right to it. We've been looking at that stanza about aspiring bodhicitta. We just read it. In the source of all my good, I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life, acknowledging the various sufferings that we have. And we'll get into that when we look at the section on compassion. And we'll see there's a lot of sufferings that we can think about sentient beings have and wanting them to be removed from. And we recognize that we have all of these sufferings, and and in dependence upon the realization of the actual current state of our life, we then turn that idea and look at everyone else's current state and recognize they have the same plight as we do. So I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. So here it says every living being, everyone my own mother. So we've been working on the specific steps that would allow us to realize this grand idea that every being is my own mother. Every being is someone that I would like to become a Buddha for the sake of. This kind of cognitive process of change that goes from the place where someone like me is at, where I have all these different biases, to a place where not only am I just not biased, like kind of neutral, I'm willing and concerned about everyone so much that day and night I'm working at a way to become the most reliable guide in the universe, to be able to show them exactly how to achieve what they want to achieve and be free from the things that I want to be free from. So we've been learning how to establish that, hey, sentient beings are worthy of this wish. So we've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And we've been doing, I think, a pretty good job at making sure we're not leaving anything out. We've been using this as our springboard to then look at, oh, you know, if Lama Tsongkhapa points out a sutra, what is that sutra? Where's that sutra from? Or Lama Tsongkhapa points out, you know, something from an Indian pandit. Who is that Indian pandit? What is that work? And we've been then looking at a lot of different Tibetan commentaries by the various Dalai Lamas, by the 3rd Dalai Lama, the 5th Dalai Lama, the 7th Dalai Lama, the 14th Dalai Lama. We've been looking at the 2 Panchen Lamas texts, the Panchen Losang Chuji Jetsun and Panchen Losang Yeshe's texts. We've been looking at Pabonka Rinpoche's text and you know, liberation in the palm of your hand, and then various other commentaries. So we've been doing a good job, I think, as we can. In the, you know, English, we have all these books. So, you know, why not look as deeply at this as possible to learn, as I said before, all the tricks that we can use to make our mind change quicker. because I don't know about you. I'm not in, I'm pretty dissatisfied with suffering, and I would like to have more happiness, and I'm kind of in a rush, if you will. I mean, I'm supposed to have the patience to endure suffering, but I'm kind of impatient at this point with suffering. I'm kind of impatient with a mind that doesn't have complete satisfaction. So any trick that I can learn that'll help my mind change quicker, I find to be awesome. And, there's a joke that said, this section of the Lam Rim in terms of the meaning of the material isn't really hard to understand. It's hard to make our minds start to work like it, but the meaning of the material isn't hard to understand. And it's said that those who aren't really great scholars take the easy parts of the text and just tear it apart and look at every single thing that you can. We are doing that. But hopefully, as we move forward in the text, we can then do the same thing in the harder sections and we can look at the vast amount of commentaries when we're looking at concentration, when we're looking at emptiness. So I, aspire to not be that person His Holiness talks about who has, not really good teeth, who does a really intense job when he or she gets soft food and shows off and chews it up and chews it to its littlest point. And then when there's something really hard, they just swallow it like a pill. His Holiness says that, some folks who aren't really the greatest scholars will just take the easy parts and chew them, chew them, chew them, chew them, chew them up, and then get to the harder section and just kind of quickly move past it, just swallow it without chewing it. So hopefully we will, do this Lam Rim tradition justice by looking as deeply at the later topics as we are in these topics. And we've made it, through deeply looking at the 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings. And I think that we're up for this task. So we're doing all of this point of the 7-point cause and effect so that we can realize the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So let's take us back. 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Passed down from who? You're saying it as I'm saying it, I'm hoping. And what was the lineage called? Passed down from Lord Maitreya. Actually, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha, down through the extensive deeds lineage, through Master Salimpan, Lord Atisha, and Master Drone Tompa, down through the various lineage masters to us. Extensive deeds lineage, passed down Buddha Shakyamuni, Lord Maitreya to Master Asanga. And this particular instruction, the 7-point cause and effect instruction, was the more kind of public teaching that was given about bodhicitta. The equalizing and exchanging self with others practice was not as public of a teaching. Some would say that this sets a foundation for it. The practices can be combined. Others say that some folks like this, some folks like the other one. My opinion is this is the foundation, and that you need the idea of previous lives. And this kind of thing, this hard pill to swallow that we are culturally don't like to swallow about beginningless lives. I feel this is really crucial to understand in order to effectively practice the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. But I don't know, maybe you have a different opinion, but this is my feeling. And I've seen this actually in texts by other great masters that it's also their feeling. I think that in Master Nankha Pel's Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, there's something similar, a sentiment. I may be wrong, but I think there's a similar sentiment made. I'm going to look that up. Okay. So we've been looking at the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. We looked at the pre-step. We said that there are, when we look at the main thing, 7 causes, 1 result. And there's actually a pre-step that's not included within those. So the pre-step is equanimity. If I was Geshe Dorji Damdula, I'd say, anyone? What's the pre-step? So it's equanimity. Equanimity in relation to who? Friends, enemies, and neutrals. So we're getting an unbiased attitude of open-mindedness and a willingness to equally help. So what we're trying to do is train the mind to become intent on others' welfare. And then there's actually a basis that needs to be there for developing the attitude. There's a basis of equanimity that needs to first be there to make an even ground. And then this basis of seeing beings as lovable, building up this idea of seeing all beings, every being in the universe is lovable. And we do this through setting up this foundation, through recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, and wishing to repay their kindness. So in looking at the 7-point cause and effect, we have the pre-step of equanimity we just mentioned, and then we have the first 3 steps among the 6 causes that serve as the basis for the actual mind, that's the actual kind of attitude of intention for others' welfare, which then is the next 3 causes of love, compassion, and the altruistic attitude. So we'll get into that. So we set that foundation up by looking at the pre-step of equanimity, recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, and wishing to repay their kindness. So now that foundation is set, it says that in Pabunka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, hey, there's not much to do here. You're going to see sentient beings as lovable. You said you want to repay their kindness. And what will it feel like? And in Pabunka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, he says, what it'll feel like, he says that Geshe Potawa was talking with someone who was a mother. And he said, hey, you know, the love that you have for, say Tenzin, it was a different number. It was like Droop, I forget the name. You know, the love you have for your only son, that love you have, well, that love you'll feel for every single sentient being in the universe. If you've worked on these foundational steps well, this love through the force of attraction is gonna feel like that. That love that you have for your only child, and Kamala Shila, Master Kamala Shila in the Stages of Meditation mentions this also as well. You know, that Amala, that love, hey, Amala, hey, mother, that love you have for your only child, you know how that feels? Well, you're going to feel that way about every being in the universe, even the difficult ones. It sounds like a great idea until you start thinking about the people that you really, really have difficulty with, and then think about who you love more than anyone, and see if you can somehow rectify in your mind the idea that those 2 beings should have your equal love. And this is why this is not easy. His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the commentary on Master Kamala Shila's Stages of Meditation says, compassion is extremely stubborn. It won't make sense to us unless we logically prove it to ourselves. And this is what this 7-point cause and effect is doing. We're establishing a basis of logic. We're not going woo-woo, all sentient beings are our mother. Oh, let's love everyone. We're logically proving this to ourselves, logically proving that all beings are objects of our love, and logically coming to the conclusion that there's no other way of thinking than that even that difficult person being difficult is not an excuse for me not to not love them. They're difficult. That's not an excuse for me not to have compassion for them. Even though they're difficult, I should love them as much as I love the person who I'm closest to in this world. Imagine having that kind of a mind. So when we talk about all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, and we think of this great idea, and we think that we actually think like this, we don't think like this. I don't think like this. I'd like to think like this, but to get my mind operating like a compassion machine, a loving machine that doesn't know how to have bias anymore, that doesn't know how to not love everyone, that doesn't know how to not have compassion for everyone, to turn my mind from what it is right now into a machine that works like that, I'm going to need to introduce different things into it than are presently in it. I'm going to need to introduce different modes and ways of thinking that are going to disrupt the improper modes of thinking. And Master Dharmakirti in the Pramadavartika Karika says the good news is that right actual thinking overcomes correct thinking. Ignorance is overcome by wisdom. So luckily for us, we can apply this cognitive points, we can, these logical points, and we can change our minds. And we can go back to what the Buddha said, that all phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. So we have to figure out what's causing samsara, contaminated causes. What's causing us not to be as happy as we possibly could and as reliable as we could? Well, the fact that we have self-cherishing attitude in any form whatsoever, and we have self-grasping ignorance. So we have to look at, okay, how do I remove the ways that my mind think that cause me to have these states of suffering and limited states of happiness that aren't really happiness, that are actually the suffering of change? How do I do that? What do I have to do? I have to change the way I think in the most intricate ways. I can't have any lingering doubts about the fact that just because you're a monster, that doesn't give me a reason not to love you. And not like, oh, I love you, you. I just say these words and that means that I think it. No, someone is giving you a hard time and you're able to see that they forgot they were your mother too, just like you forgot that they were your mother. You forgot that they were your only child, and they've forgotten that you were their only child. They're crazy just like you're crazy. When you get mad that they're going off, you're just as crazy as them getting mad at you, because you've both forgotten reality. I've forgotten the fact that you were my mother. I've forgotten the fact that I looked at you were my only child in the previous life. You've forgotten those two facts too. And we're both operating from a place that isn't wise. And if I can unforget that, and I see you doing this, this is going to make me want you to be happy. You see how this works? It works by recognizing the plight that we're in, the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, the 3 sufferings. And we're going to learn that when we meditate upon compassion, it talks about 110 sufferings in the bodhisattva levels. I think it's 110, 2 sets of 55. Is that 110? I was reading them before class and I threatened in my mind to read you the 110 types of suffering. But really, 110 types of suffering. Someone's in front of us. There's like their mind. If they're angry, we know that's an affliction, the presence of which disturbs the mind. Someone's mind is disturbed and suffering in front of us. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? It's really amazing material. So we know this basis, if we build it strong enough, according to Pabunka Rinpoche, there's not much else to do. If we've built this idea that all sentient beings are our mother, remember their kindness and wish to repay their kindness and mean it, I want to repay the kindness of who? Every single sentient being in the universe. This isn't some of them. And I don't even know where they all are. And this is why Lord Atisha says, I got to get clairvoyance to help beings. I don't even know where they are. I don't even know how to begin to help. I don't even want to help. I say I want to help. I don't want to help. I don't really want to be kind. Why? Because I haven't rooted out all these subtle, unkind ways in my mind. I have this bifurcation that's so strong that at all costs, don't mess with me. I'm the center of the universe. The universe is mine. And anything that's a rub against that, don't mess with me. Because I'm going to react. You know why? Because I have forgotten I've forgotten our relationship. And this medicine is showing us how to remember this relationship. So then we've gone over love, and we looked at love. We looked at Zapatra Rinpoche's Words of My Perfect Teacher, that beautiful section on love. obviously looked at the Lamrim Chemo, and then last week we looked at the fifth Dalai Lama. Hold on, I have to do this I'm not a robot thing. Oh, I got the, hold on. So strange. So we looked at the fifth Dalai Lama's text, Spoken Words of Manjushri, fifth Dalai Lama, Ngawang Losang Gyatso's text. Amazing, amazing meditation done on love. So I feel that we've gone over love really well, and we're going to arrive at compassion. So I'm just read a little bit about love, just to get us to remember what the object and subject, the object is, the object of observation, and then the kind of aspect of the object that we're thinking about in terms of the subjective aspect. So for love, so we've got this foundation where we couldn't imagine not being loving all beings, because we worked so hard at these foundational steps. And now we're just naturally coming to this idea. So the Lamrim is just telling us how to define this thing that we're kind of arrived at and maybe don't even know how to put into a complete words. We're saying, I'm going to repay the kindness of sentient beings. And so what are we talking about here? So this section is where we actually begin the development of the attitude of being intent on others' welfare that will then arrive at bodhicitta. The ultimate way to work for others' welfare is to become a Buddha. And this is the conclusion that you make. So you're making these established conclusions, just like tenets. You're establishing conclusions in your mind that then serve for the next conclusion. I want to be a cause for all beings to be happy. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it on myself. And you conclude that, and then you conclude that you can't do it unless you're a Buddha. So these are conclusions you're making. You're proving to your mind the necessity to keep going, to keep enhancing your mind for your sake and for all sentient beings' sake. So the object of your love is sentient beings who do not have happiness. So love is wanting beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. So the object of love, the object of observation, isn't a rock. It's a being who doesn't have happiness in some way, who's missing some sort of happiness. And that really is expansive. If you look at arhats, are missing the highest level of happiness. Arhats of the hearer and solitary realizer. So the arhats are objects of the Buddha's compassion. So the bodhisattva sees the abiding nirvana as a place that the arhats need to improve themselves from because they don't have the highest amount of happiness. So for a bodhisattva, they're seeing the arhats, who are hearers and solitary realizers, as beings who don't have the amount of happiness that they could. It's wild, right? They have the afflictive, the obstructions to omniscience. So they have the subtle self-cherishing attitude. And if you have the subtle self-cherishing attitude, you can't experience immeasurable bliss and happiness. So the object of love is beings who don't have happiness, and the subjective aspect is thinking, how nice it would be if sentient beings were happy. May they be happy. I will cause them to be happy. So here we're making this general idea. I'll cause them to be happy. I'll be a cause for them to be happy. We aren't at the point yet where when we move. So yeah, well, I'll cause them. Let's just keep each step clean. I'll cause them to be happy. So that's this idea of, okay, I want every single sentient being in the universe to be repaid. They've been kind to me. How can I repay them? Well, I know that repaying them with material things and so forth within samsara is just handing them the suffering of change. Is this real repayment? No. Well, I learned in the small and medium scope for myself that the way to be happy and free from, to be at peace, is to, get rid of these various negativities that need to be gotten rid of within the mind stream that keep us from being at peace. So how then can I, work with them? How can I work with this idea? How can I bring them to this place? So here we're saying, I want to be a cause for that happiness, because we say we're going to repay the kindness. Repaying is causing kindness. So you see the connection here. We love this being because we're so attracted to them. We see them as lovable because we've established them as such through this base of all beings are mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. We've established them as lovable. And now we're saying, hey, you're someone I see as lovable, and I want you to have happiness, and I want to be the cause of that happiness, because that's what someone who loves someone feels for someone. They want them to be happy. So we see how our minds are shifting by us forcing our minds to shift with logic and with reasoning. So I think we'll just read what compassion is. It's a huge section. I have a lot of material to go over with you about it, and then we'll end. It says the cultivation of compassion. In order to understand the cultivation of compassion, you must know the following topics. So the object of compassion. So the object of love was sentient beings who don't have happiness, or sentient beings who are, I think, who do not have happiness. I think bereft of happiness is the other text. I've been reading so many texts, I'm starting to mix them up. So sentient beings who don't have happiness. So now the object of compassion is sentient beings who have misery, who have any among the three types of suffering: suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and pervasive compounded suffering, or 110 types of suffering that gets mentioned later. And how nice it would be if living beings were free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. I will cause them to be free from suffering. So this is the idea. You see the little bit of difference. I want them to be happy. I want them to be free from suffering. It's a little bit different. You can be free from suffering, but now you don't have suffering, but now you just won the lottery. Just conventional tenses. Okay. Your headache went away. Okay, I don't have a headache. I don't have a backache. It's all gone. I'm at peace. My mind's not disturbed. And you won the lottery. So you can see a slight difference in feeling when you think about freedom from suffering and then the highest amount of happiness possible. So you can see just a little bit of difference. And then there's a big debate. It's not saying this is cause and effect and it has to be done in this order, and you can do Tonglen in a different order. Um, and there's a joke, why would wouldn't I want to take somebody's suffering away before I took them out to dinner? Wouldn't it be good to do compassion first? So it's all about, it doesn't matter the order. I'm joking around. What's important is you do an order. You do something. You do something to change your mind, to make it so you feel better. And this is how you do it. This is the second volume of the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. You find here all of this stuff that I'm teaching about bodhicitta and then the six perfections. We're so fortunate to have this in our lives. And then we get into the actual perfection of concentration and perfection of wisdom in terms of special insight and so forth, and then a little tiny section on Tantra in the third volume. But the first and second volume, please, 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 please get to know. First and second volume of the Great Treatise, and especially the first volume. I know a lot of people that say, oh, that first volume, it's just a lot about suffering, and I know about suffering, and I'm not into it. I like the second volume. It's like cool. It's about perfections. It's about generosity and patience and love and compassion. But you don't even know what you're having compassion for if you don't know the first volume. You don't even want to have compassion because you don't even want to get out of cyclic existence. If you don't know the first volume, you don't even want to not be a dog and know how to not be a dog yet. You aren't doing enough in your life to not be a dog, and you're not even convinced to do enough in your life to not be a dog in your next life. You haven't convinced your mind to not to hey, I should live my life in a way that makes it so in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I won't be a dog. That's a small scope. We don't think like that. Are you day and night trying to figure out how to not be a dog in your next life, or a slug? Is that your main thing? You're really, man, I'm really, really thinking about this. No, we think about Buddhahood. We think about, oh, this place in the sky, this Buddhahood. Wow, and love. And we put big like sparkles around it. If we could do like emojis, we'd have like right now, I'd say love and like sparkles would happen, and Buddhahood, and I'd like glow or something. That's just not the way it happens. It's hard work, cognitive transformation, and that makes an effective state of mind occur that's different. Okay, that's what I want to say tonight. I appreciate you all listening. I went a little longer than I wanted to, but I went a little longer than I wanted to. What are you going to do? And let's do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Hold on one second. I mixed up all my paperwork. Yep, I sure did. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular, the essential teachings of Venerable Azandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this Vajrasattva mantra. Om Mensasato Samayam and Evalaya Mensasato Sinamajida, the Meva Zuka Meva Zuka Meva Anurag Meva Savasiri Mebracha, Sava Kama Suchi Mekidam Shion Koroma, Bhagavan Zavadata Kata Menzama Memoka Benzabava Maha Samaya Sapa Ve. May we always be protected by Paul the Lama. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jojo Rama Junjo Kala Raja Mo Ramo Ajadaja Junjo Hongjo Om. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect gurus. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond, Lord Vajradhara. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings, all powerful. Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In a prayer of supplication to Namgyo Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, my root teacher, a complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Namgyo Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend, who is inseparable from Arya Tara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ah Om, Om Ah Om, Om Ah Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence. Compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, place the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our study. The Buddha does not wash the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Please practice these